Well, hello, mamas. Hello. We are here to talk about study time agreements. Let's figure out what you and your team need to be on the same page about when it comes to studying for tests, for preparing for those pop quizzes, for everything assessment related at school. So, if you've watched the other videos about homework, you've watched the other videos about screen time, definitely let me know down below with a one or two. One, you've watched one of them. Two, you've watched both of them because I'm curious to know, are you watching these videos on Facebook, on YouTube, and then implementing them? Okay, once your teens to have these discussions, to sit down, put these agreements, these contracts together sooner rather than later, so that way it's a smooth semester, smooth school year for you both. So let's talk about study time, okay? Because homework, study time, very closely related, but not quite the same, okay? Now, before we talk about what kind of agreements you need to have when it comes to studying for tests with your teen, do know there's a link in the description for my Homework Buster. So that's an awesome resource for you, free, that you can grab when you go to that link. But let's talk about test taking, okay? Let's talk about the study time for tests. So with the homework video, the contract, we talked about the days and times. The same is true for studying, okay? Whenever your teen doesn't have homework to do, an assignment due at midnight, a big project that's due at the end of the week, we want your teens to study, okay? Definitely, if there's no homework to do, then it's time to study. But at the same time, remember how I said that they're related but not the same? Well, if your teen has an assignment due and he has a test to study for, happen. Now, maybe we've set aside an hour a night. We talked about the example of can't possibly do homework on Tuesdays because there's too much stuff going on. Well, if your teen knows, okay, I have a test on Wednesday, can't study on Tuesday, just like your teen has to figure out how do I get that homework done, and that's due for Wednesday, your teen needs to also figure out, okay, when do I possibly get some study time in so I'm ready for Wednesday. That does not mean I'm staying up till midnight on Tuesday cramming for this test last minute. Okay, so that's agreement number one, or part one, I should say, of the agreement is figure out the days, figure out the times. Okay, because remember, the goal here, as your children get to middle school and high school and beyond, mamas, you do not have to remind your teens. It's not your responsibility to remind your teens, oh, you have a test. Oh, have you made time yet? Are you ready? That's not your job. Okay, we want our teens to do these things on their own, and if they don't, well, then the consequences with studying comes down to not a great grade on that test or that quiz. Okay. Now that's kind of part number two here. I want you to think about when it comes to studying is you probably have a very distinct idea of what studying looks like. How much time your teen needs to study, how your teen needs to study, maybe even where or with whom. That can be a headache for you, and that can be a headache for your teen. Okay. So something I encourage you all to think about this is how do we decide if studying is effective? Now, I'm a study skills tutor. I'm the CEO and founder of Ace Cookie Tutoring, and that's what I teach teens. I teach your teens, okay, how do you learn? What methods are going to work for you? How do we personalize your learning? Okay, so mamas, how your teen studies might not look right to you, but if it works for your teen, then it works. Okay, so that's something to really put in the agreement. Maybe something to consider is, you let your teen do his thing. And your agreement is if you get this grade, you do this kind of, basically, what do I want to say, mark? This is kind of, I don't want to go so far as to say the grade in the class because that's a lot of tests. We could have a lot of bad grades or a lot of grades that lead to a not so great grade. But if we can come up with an agreement, you have an expectation, you kind of lay down the law of, hey, this is, the grade that I want you to get, can't get less than this. And your teen gets that doing what he wants to do, not study the way you would recommend, that can be part of the agreement. But again, you have to be okay with that. So a couple more thoughts here for you as to what, are some study ideas for you, let alone maybe some ways for you and your team to decide, okay, my team can prove that he actually studied. Like, I know without a doubt that my child is ready for this quiz, for this test. Before I do, I just want to say thanks for watching here on Facebook. Thanks for watching on YouTube. If you haven't followed, if you haven't subscribed to the Ace Cookie Tutoring channels or pages, would love to have you, because there will be more videos this week about other agreements, other contracts. And Jessyka Coulter, that's me, will be sharing lots of other videos about study skills, about learning over the next several weeks, months, and hopefully years. So, all right. How do you know your teens have actually studied? You've seen your teen, maybe, hopefully, going through his notes. Maybe you've seen your teen rereading different books, whether it's like a physical textbook or an ebook, and you're kind of like, was he actually, reading, or was he gaming, or, was the phone out? Like, what really happened here? So think about that. What can your teen do to prove to you that he's actually studied, that he's actually ready for the test? An easy thing, I think, for my auditory learners especially, is ask your teen for the study guide. And this is something you two need to talk about, but, is it 5 random questions that you pick? Is it every single question on the study guide? Like, what exactly are you going to ask your teen for, basically like a verbal quiz? And if your child can answer those questions correctly, then that's amazing, and you can lay off and be like, okay, that's our agreement. You're as ready as I know you to be. Maybe you want your teen to do some kind of presentation, whether it's something they write out, draw out, again, verbally, whatever your agreement is, okay? And the whole cool thing about this is that having your teen prove the knowledge, prove that, hey, I've actually studied, I'm actually ready for this, is studying in itself. Your teen might not even realize this, but something as simple as, you just asking a few quick questions and your teen's getting a chance to review. Okay, and your teen walking you through how to do this problem, or sharing the definitions, whatever it is you guys have decided on, whatever the class might be, the tests, requirements, all that good stuff. Again, it's more review. Okay, so definitely remember, your teens are becoming more and more independent. So the goal here is that you're not yelling, you're not nagging, you're not getting upset, you're letting your teens be in control of their education. But at the same time, you're the parent, okay? So, it's your duty, your right, your privilege, however you want to look at it, to have expectations, okay? So a contract, an agreement between your teen let your teen know, okay, this is what we're going to stick to. These are our rules, and there's not going to be any surprises, okay? Now, obviously, finals, very, very different. So I would highly recommend that there's something in that contract, in that agreement, about like bigger tests, like maybe you have something for like quizzes, or you have something about like unit tests, and then something about finals. Because to me, there's no way, no matter how good of a student you have, no matter what the grades currently are, that 5 minutes is enough for a final. Okay. And I would recommend that there's something in there about studying old material too. We have a bad habit, a lot of times students do. I see this all the time when I work with them in my Love to Learn program, is that they kind of get through a unit test and then they forget about it. And so trying to walk them through, okay, why we got to keep the old homework assignments, why we got to keep all those notes organized. And then also, okay, when do we actually look at that old stuff? And that comes into that homework time. Okay, so we have an hour. Well, you only had an actual 5-minute assignment. You're done with that. What do you do with the rest of your time? Well, let's go through those old notes. Let's look at stuff from 2 months ago. Okay, so think about now what exactly your teens can do daily, weekly, bare minimum monthly to get ready for finals. So lots and lots of things to consider, lots of things to include in the study contract. Okay, definitely happy to create one. I know there's all sorts of homework contracts out there. You could probably easily modify one to be study time as well. If you've got questions, you've got thoughts, let me know. If there's something you're wondering, hey, is there an agreement? Is there a contract I should make for, X subject? Let me know what that subject is down below so we can talk about it tomorrow, because we'll do at least one more video, but would happy to do a couple more if there's something specific you want help with, questions about. And last thing before we wrap this up, do know that link is waiting for you in the description for the Homework Buster. So if you want to not fight about homework, You don't want to, be like, why is my teen not doing his homework? That Homework Buster is there for you. It's an awesome guide. It's got all sorts of interactive activities to really help you walk through, okay, is my teen doing this? What's really going on? And then some tips to bust through those objections. Because you will find when you download that, when you go to that link, provide your name and email, a lot of these objections also relate to test taking and study skills and most importantly, study time at home. So have a good night. Talk to you tomorrow.